Yeah, so good day everyone and welcome back to Code with Lawrence or YouTube channel. So today we are going to be learning a very important aspect of CSS, which is media queries. So media queries help to handle responsiveness of websites. So how you want your website to look on different devices, like a mobile device or a desktop or a laptop or a bigger screen. This is basically what media queries handles. So you're going to be learning every single one of this in this video. So this is a very important aspect in CSS, so I advise you watch the video to the end so you don't miss out on any key concepts of media queries. So less talking, more coding, let's get on. We are going to be learning about media queries today. So first things first, you're going to create a new file in the sandbox folder we've always been using. So the sandbox folder we've used in the previous two videos to learn CSS, to learn HTML, you're going to be creating another new file called media queries. So media hyphen queries. .html. So that's basically that. Then you do your normal formats, leave all this, then we'll just do this as media queries. So first things first is basically what's media queries. Media queries is used to handle, let's say, if you want your website to display in a particular way for your mobile device. Let's say if you open your website on your mobile device, how do you want it to display? If you open it on your laptop, on your desktop, how do you want it to display? If you open it on your bigger screen, let's say your TV or something, how is it going to display? Because you have to target each and every one of these devices if you want your website to be responsive. Nobody wants to open a website and you open it on a mobile device and everything is looking all scattered. You get what I'm saying? So that's basically what this video is going to teach you, and I'm going to teach you how to make sure you've used CSS to handle media queries. So along the line, we're going to learn Bootstrap, which is a way by which is used to make websites responsive. But it's important to know media queries still, because no matter what Bootstrap can do, you still have to target some particular screens when you're developing your website. So that's why you've come here today, so you know how to go about that, and I'm going to teach you in my best possible way to make sure you understand every single thing you need to know about media queries, especially as a beginner starting in web development. So first things first, we're going to be creating two how will I put it? We're going to be creating a particular small website, and we're going to be creating media queries to make it look better. So most of the HTML element and CSS element I'm going to be using are things that I've explained in my previous video on top of your screen right now. So we're just going to go straight into putting this HTML elements and also using media queries for the CSS. So first things first, I'm going to be creating my divs. So first div is going to have a class of container. Then inside this particular class, now I'm just going to be putting an image. So I have a couple of images here in my image folder already. So if you don't know how we got this image, I think in my previous video I've gone about this and I've put like links to how you could download these images and use it. So in this case now, because it's a div and an image is going to be in that div, it's going to be block elements. Each and every one of these images are going to appear as block elements, meaning they take the full width of the web page by default. So but naturally images are inline elements, meaning you put an image, it just takes a particular height, but the width is just the width of that particular image. It doesn't like span through the whole web page, unlike block elements. So first things first, we're going to be using the image tag, and the source now in this case will be / images / image1. So I'm putting the alt as image1. It's important that you put an alternative. Now the point of this alternative is if for one reason or the other your image doesn't load, then this alt would be the one to display with that small image icon. So next up is we are going to be specifying widths of 200 and a height of 200. So next up, I'm just going to be copying this 4 more times. So next up, I'm just going to be changing this images, image 2, image 3, image 4, and image 5. So I'm just going to save this and let's see how this looks in our browser. So you could see each and every one of those image, how they are looking now. So that's our image. Each and every one of them have the same width, the same height and everything. That was the whole plan. But you could see the image here, the images here are in block formats now, meaning they are taking the full length of the full width of the web page, but by default without those div elements, and that's because they are embedded into that div container. So basically, like I explained in how to write your first HTML page video, images are inline elements, so they basically like take just a particular height, the particular height that they contain, but the next image now lies beside of it. The next image lies beside of it, but a div element now is a block element. Now because we've embedded those images in that div container, which is the div tag, that's why they are displaying as block elements. So next up, I'm just going to be now using media queries to see how this looks. Now if I right click on this web page and I come to inspect here, I come to devices here, toggle device toolbar. Now this is how you want to see the responsiveness of your website. So personally, I like using the iPhone 12 Pro to, or you could use any device of your choice. So now this is how my website will display on an iPhone 12 Pro, and that's because I've put them in div containers. So if I probably want, let's say I want this image, 2 of them to be here, 2 here, then just like that. This is how we go about it. Here on this case now, the image is looking quite alright, but in a situation where probably I want the image to be at the middle, I want some margin by the side, by the left, margin at the right, then this is how we go about it. So we create our CSS. So under your CSS, just right click on it and create a new file called mediaqueries.css. So now we first of all have to like link this. So link it to /css/mediaqueries.css. Save this. Remember to always save so you don't get frustrated when you see that your website isn't responding. So next up, we're going to be using the media query now. So now when you're using media query, first off is we're going to be using the element called @media. And there are 2 things involved. Either I could say @media and @media screen. Personally, I prefer to use @media screen, so it targets the screen. Then I say and max width of 800px. Now basically I'm going to be explaining what max width and min width is. So it's in the simplest term I could explain it is max width is basically anything above, anything below 800px. So in this case now I've specified 800px as the maximum width. So any device width that is 800px and below, that's basically the devices that are going to look the way I'm writing the CSS now. So what I mean is, if I go back to my browser here, now this represents the width, this represents the height. Now you can see for this device the width here is 390, so definitely it's going to fall under max width of 800px. If the device was to be something like a nested hop max, now you can see the width is 1280px. So basically this is now going, it is not going to fall under this particular CSS I'm creating, because I've specified that the max width is going to be 800px. So anything above 800px would not take the CSS I'm going to be writing under. So that's basically what max width is. Now on the other hand, min width is any device that has the width of, let's say, 800px and above. So if I specify a min width of 800px, so now this is going to be any device that the width is 800px and above. So 800px, 900px, 1000px, 1100px will take this particular CSS I'm going to be writing under here. Why, on the other hand, max width, like I said earlier, is going to be the particular value I've specified. So this is my property, this is my value. So I've specified a max width of 800px, and I'm saying every device that is 800px and below should now, in the class which is .container, now in that class .container, I want the class to have margin left and a padding left. So if I should try text align center and I refresh the browser, so I'm just going to go back to like 12 Pro and I refresh the browser, now you could see every image is at the center. So text align center might confuse a lot of people, because text align center is actually to align text to the center, but sometimes they are actually to align elements to the center. So there's basically no CSS property that can accurately align an element to the center, aside when specifying a couple of properties like top, left, position, absolute, stuff like that. But if you just use text align center, your element should get to the center. Trust me, not every time this is going to work, but most of the time it is going to work, and it's not affecting the validity of your HTML page or anything. So now you could see on this iPhone 12 Pro, my images are at the center. But if I close this, my images are still here. I come to my iPhone 12 Pro, my images now are at the center. So let's put a couple of text under this. So let's make the website look more beautiful. So I'm just going to put a p tag, and I'm going to say first image. I'm going to be copying this and pasting it for the remaining of the images. So first image, this will be second image, this will be third, this will be the fourth, sorry about that, and that will be the fifth image. So I save this, and let's come back to a browser and let's see what that looks like. So that's what we've got first image, second image, third image. Now, because we're dealing with media queries, we're going to be looking at this 80% of the time from this angle. So let's add a little bit of the top, because of it's literally like looking like it's just images. So let's just add like a beautiful, so I'm just gonna add another container. So I'm going to specify a div and a class of container top. So in this class now, I'm going to be doing some styling in it. So now I'm not using any media queries for this case. I'm not going to be putting this in my media queries. So they're just going to be like normal CSS. So I'm going to be saying dot container top. And I'm going to be giving it a background color of red. I'm giving it a color of white. Color of hash FFF, and I'm going to be specifying text align center. Back to this, I'm going to be saying my h1 tag, this is my image website. Save this and let's see how this looks on the browser now. So here we go, that's it. So you could see there are spaces at the top and at the sides, and nobody wants down their website. So I'm just going to be, in my CSS, I'm just going to be adding my body tag, which holds everything embedded in the website, and I'm going to say margin 0 and padding 0. If you don't know what margin and padding is, you should look at my video on Learn CSS. I took a lot of time to explain what padding and margin is. So if I refresh that, okay, and that's not hitting the wall, so I'm just gonna say comma asterisk. Yeah, so that's hitting the wall now. So everything isn't having spaces now. So that's the way you want your website to look, less spaces. So by default, when you create these elements, most of the time they usually like have spaces embedded in them. So with the asterisk, you're basically saying I want all the elements to not have any extra margin or any extra padding. I'm going to specify the padding myself. So there's no point of this body, so I'm just going to take that out and refresh. It's still going to be the same double. So that's basically what the asterisk is saying. So it's saying I don't want my website to, any element on my website to have any margin, any padding. I'm going to specify that myself. So that's basically that. And it's advisable that when you're creating your website, you should put this, because it's better if you like could specify that yourself and you're able to calculate it well yourself. So next up, we're going to be creating some divs under this. So I want to be creating a div, and I'll be saying this div will be have a class of about section. And in this about section, I'm going to be creating a nested div in it. So basically that nested div would have a class of about, Now inside that div, I'm going to be having a text. Now this is going to be I'm going to put my first h2 tag, then first about, and I'm going to be putting a dummy text. So dummy text of lorem. If you want the dummy text, just type lorem, then hit enter. So you're gonna have a dummy text. So you're gonna have like this really long text, which I'm going to be cutting down so you could see my screen really well. Yeah, so that is that for the dummy text. So next up, now I'm going to be creating this 2 times. So Ctrl C, Ctrl V. So about, still going to be about though, but this time is going to be second about. So that's 2 div is enough, and I'm just going to refresh my browser and let's see how this looks. So that's how this look now. So I don't want, first of all, let's do some styling to this. So the first class is about. So under my CSS, I'm just going to be adding a styling of dot about, curly braces. Then I'm going to be adding background color of blue in the first one, and color of #000. Let's just do #FFF. White is fine. Then I'm just going to be having a padding. Now, like I said earlier, if you didn't get what padding and margin is, you should check my previous video on learn CSS, and in the video I've explained margin and padding really extensively in that video. So padding, in this case, I'm going to be specifying, I want the padding to be around, so I'm going to be specifying a padding of like let's say 40 px. Now, so that's what I have now, because of we've specified the asterisk, meaning there should not be any margin or padding between them. That's why they look like they are the same div. So I'm just going to be adding a margin. And margin for top and bottom will be 10 px, but I don't want any for left and right. So I'm just gonna refresh my browser, and here we go, 2 different divs. So now I want these divs, definitely you go to website and you probably see 2 divs beside each other. I want them to be beside each other. I don't want them to like take the full weight of the web page. Now this, if you didn't get the concept of displays, you should check my video on how to create websites with Flexboxes, and how to create website with Flexboxes, and how to use displays, different displays like display flex, display inline, so many displays on your web page. So in this case now, I'm going to be, because of the hierarchy, I'm going to be saying about container first, about -container. And this about container is what I used to, okay, it's about section. Good, I checked. So about section, then that's why I used to, this is where the whole 2 divs are embedded inside. So this is like the main div holding it. So in this div now, I'm going to be adding display of flex in the CSS. So display of flex and flex direction of row. So basically, you know what rows and column are? Rows is basically spanning widths, column are basically spanning heights. So columns are like, rows are like straight lines, horizontal lines, while rows are like horizontal lines, while columns are like vertical lines. So that's basically what display and like flex direction row is all about. So I save this and I come back to my browser and I refresh. So now this is what we've got. So you could see that the two divs are now on the same widths, on the same line. So but you could see there's no space now between them. That's because we didn't specify any margin for left and right. Now the reason why I do this is so that you know, if the website begins to like scroll side by side, you know where the problem is. Don't add margin of left and right before you actually see what you want to do, because if you add in margin of left and right, or padding margin of left and right precisely, is sometimes if your website starts to scroll left and right, which your website should never do, you would not actually know what the problem is. So when you look at your website, when it's actually what you want to see, like now I know my two divs, I want to see them beside each other. So that at this point now is when you add your margin left and your margin right. So we go back to the about now, and instead of this 0, we're going to be adding 10px. Save this and come back and refresh. Now here's what we got. Now we've got our two divs looking better now, looking way better now. So this is the mini websites we've created. For this images, I'm going to alter them a bit, but this is where the whole concept of this video is. So now if I should inspect this back and I come here, this is how it looks like. So now I don't want it to actually look like this. I want it to actually look way better than this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now, instead of in the place where I've targeted that width, I come here and I specify dot about section, which is what I actually give display of flex. Open my curly braces. Now I give it a display of block, because block elements are basically breaking down each other. So I give it now a display of block. So if I save this and I refresh, you can see nothing happens to our website look on our desktop, but the moment I go to our mobile device, this is what we got: a better looking div for our mobile device. So that's basically what the concept of media queries is, and you could target as much screen as possible. So if I should move this to my nested hub max, you could see it's looking way better than how it's supposed to look. If I move this to my Galaxy, you can see looking better. If I move this to my iPad mini, you'll see looking broken. Why? Because the width here is still below 800px. So now I'm just going to go to my responsive, and in this case I'm now going to be dragging. I'm going to be dragging and see what happens. So you can see the way the website keeps navigating, and it keeps looking better as you change it. So definitely a website can be this small, but even at this point the website is still navigating, and you could see until it gets like really tiny, and it still take its particular shape. So if I span this, if I keep spanning it, now watch the point where it begins to like join together. When it begins to come on a straight line, you can see the moment I come to a width higher than 800px, see that happens. So I move, and it's all good. So break. So that's basically all what media queries. This is a very important aspect in CSS that you should really know in order to make your website more responsive. So for the case of like bigger screen, so if you want to target a bigger screen, you probably, if you want to target the screen of that particular width and below, you probably put it. So if I say I want to target 1000 px and below, then I put this, and you specify your CSS property and what you're changing that you specified here earlier, and you want it to look different in your mobile device or in your bigger screen. If I want it to be any device below 500 px, how do I want it to look? I specify. So I always use 800 px because it's basically the target of every tablet and mobile device within that range, is within the range of 800 px and below. So for this images now, I'm going to be making this come to the center by default. So in the container, so I'm going to be specifying dot container, and I'm now going to be putting text align center. So my images should be coming to the center of my website now. So that's basically that, and you could make your image bigger depending on how you want it to look. So if I say I want my image now, I have to take out this width and height. So I'm going to just take that out. Take that out. So we've just got our image, and in my media queries now, I'm going to be styling that image. So I just say dot container img. That's because that's the image, those are the image tag inside that particular div, inside that particular class. So I want to be giving this now a width of, let's say, 500 px and a height of 500 px. So if I save this and I refresh, this is what it looks like. So our images are looking way bigger now. So for the case of this, I don't want the images to actually be broken. Basically, when you're using media queries, you have to wrap. When you're using flex boxes, like in my video, I explained that you have to wrap those divs that you want to flex inside a particular parent div. So you have your parent div and your children div. Now those children div are the ones that you want to flex, while that parent div is where you specify the display of flex. So I'm going to give this a class of main container, and I'm just going to wrap all of this inside this main container div. And I'm going to be giving this I'm going to be styling the class now dot main container. So I'm just taking this out, container top, and now I'm going to be giving this a display of flex. Save this and refresh. So this is what we've got. But now you can see our website is panning like this, which is like I said at the beginning of this video, you don't want your website to ever do this. You don't want this to ever happen. So how we could resolve this is to specify a margin of 20 px. So this would create spaces around it of 20 px. Now, in order for this not to happen, we're going to use another important CSS property when it comes to flex, and that's called flex wrap. So under the same property, the same class or the same ID or the same tag where you defined the CSS property of display and value of flex, you also do flex wrap. So flex wrap will basically make this wrap once it gets to the full width of the web page, then it wraps to the next line. So this is another important CSS property. So if I refresh this, now this is what we got. device. If I come here and I inspect this, okay, you could see that if I come here and I inspect this, you could see that the website is spanning left and right. Like I said, this shouldn't happen. So now we're going to now target this. Everything is all right, but in this case now we are not going to be saying that main container dot main container. We are going to be saying display of block because we don't want it to be flexed now, and we are going to be saying specifying the container img. So I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to paste it here, and I'm going to be saying I want this to be 200px on a smaller screen, 200px on a smaller screen. So if I come back here and I refresh this, here we go. You could see our website is looking better, but it's still spanning left and right because of the margin we specified earlier. So we specified a margin in container, so I'm just going to copy this and paste it here, and I'm going to be saying I don't want any margin, so I'm going to say margin of 0. It's still spanning left and right. So what could be the issue? So it was just like it was as an execution problem from the browser. So now we've seen it now, and you can see everything is the same. It's not spanning left and right. So this is what your website will look like on a mobile device, and this is what it will look like on a desktop. So thank you for tuning in. We've come to the end of this video. I hope that you really learned a lot from this tutorial and learning about media queries, because this is a very important concept in CSS. And as we go further, we're going to be using this a whole lot when we start developing websites. So please kindly like, share, and subscribe to this channel. For now, until next time, thank you for watching.